Now, I got a couple of things. The Democrats want to make this woman, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the face of the Republican Party. She is a woman who believes in all sorts of conspiracy theories. Here's how the BBC described her. We won't use American media. We'll just use the BBC. Quote, her sympathy for the fringe group QAnon were public knowledge when she first ran. Staunch supporter of Trump. Previously suggested that Hillary Clinton was involved in child mutilation and a pedophilia ring. Her social media accounts have liked comments calling for the murder of Democratic politicians. She claims several high-profile school shootings were staged, including the Parkland shooting. She theorized that California fires might have been ignited by a space laser controlled by a cabal, including the Rothschild banking firm. And these are some of the things that the BBC listed that this woman believes in. And Mitch McConnell has now come out and said her views are a cancer, and the Democrats want her removed from committee assignments, if not removed from the Senate altogether, or from the House altogether. And the Republicans are now having meetings to determine whether or not she should be stripped of her committee assignments. Let me just say something about this. Democrats are really, really good at making somebody like this the face of the Republican Party. Republicans are really, really bad at choosing obvious candidates to make them the face of the Democratic Party. I'll give you just two. Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, Harvard-educated, courtly. For years, I've been writing about the 1974 scheme, and I've had Jay Homnick, who was there when he saw Chuck Schumer propose this scheme. I've been talking about this 1994 scheme that a young Chuck Schumer running for office proposed to a group of racist neighbors in a neighborhood in Flatbush, New York. There were two buildings full of blacks, and these neighbors wanted them out. They were racist. They wanted them out. And a young man who was a teenager, when he and his dad attended the meeting, is admitting that he and his dad went to this meeting, and his dad was part of this group of neighbors that wanted these blacks out. Chuck Schumer says, here's what I'll do. You guys vote for me. Here's what I'll do. I'll propose a plan to refurbish these two buildings. We'll have to give these tenants right of first refusal, of course, but we'll make them so nice they won't be able to afford to come back. And that way, voila, they'll be gone, and nobody will know we did it. Schumer got elected. He proposed a scheme. It went through. What went wrong, in quotes, is that the neighbors were able to raise the money and come back. So now they were able to come back into these two buildings with nicer digs than they had before. But it wasn't for lack of trying. Now, I ask you, if anybody could prove that a young developer named Donald Trump around the same time had proposed such a scheme to get rid of blacks out of a neighborhood by doing this, the man never could have gotten elected. There would have been person after person after person coming in testifying about all of this. But Schumer does it. Nobody says a word. Now, the young man who attended this is a man named Jay Homnick, H-O-M-M-N-I-C-K, maybe just one M, writes for American Spectator. And I've had him on my show over the years a couple of times. We did extensive interviews. There were several witnesses. Media couldn't care less. And don't tell me it was too long ago, because that was around the same time that a young Donald Trump entered into a consent decree with the FHA to stop practices that the FHA claimed were discriminating against blacks and Latino would-be tenants. Why isn't he the face? Why aren't Republicans bringing this out? Why don't they talk about this? What, the statute of limitations is over? Are you kidding me? That brings us to Maxine Waters. I touched on this yesterday. There is a woman, a former Black Panther, who was tried and convicted of murdering a New Jersey state trooper. She broke out of prison and fled to Cuba, where she is as we speak. Congress passed a resolution demanding that Fidel Castro return this woman to America. Maxine Waters wrote Fidel Castro a letter, I kid you not, likened her to a freedom fighter, accused her of being persecuted for her stance for civil rights, and urged him to keep her there. She remains there as we speak. Who does that? And have you even talked about her yelling and screaming about surround Trump cabinet members? Or about the time she arranged for a meeting with the then Secretary of Treasury, Hank Paulson, and asked for money to bail out minority-owned banks, one of which was a bank she had a financial interest in, didn't disclose that to Paulson. The House investigated. She pulls out the race card. The investigation goes supernova. Republicans are afraid of her. They're afraid if they make her the face of the party, Democrats, of course, will accuse them of being racist. Now, there's a left-wing ethics organization. They run a list of the most ethically challenged people in Congress. Her name is on the list almost every year. Nobody cares. A letter to Fidel Castro urging him to keep a woman who murdered a New Jersey state trooper. The woman, by the way, is still number one on the top 10 most wanted list of felons that New Jersey wants. Nobody talks about it. Chuck Schumer, 1974 task to get rid of a bunch of black people out of a neighborhood in New York. Nobody talks about it. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is the face of the Republican Party. Republicans, I thought Donald Trump taught you a thing or two. Maybe not. I'm Larry Elder.